A lot of you have been asking for a video where I build a workflow from scratch, from start to finish, not a heavily edited video, not something with a bunch of cuts, just really seeing the process from start to finish of building a workflow from ideation all the way through a finished product. So that's what we're going to do today. And like I've said throughout these videos and throughout all of the content that we create, I often start simply by diagramming the workflow that I want to build, the process that I want to replicate or automate with AI. And that's what we're going to do here. So I opened up this Canva whiteboard, and the working title for this is going to be new feature documentation or new feature process, something like that. The problem that I'm trying to solve here by creating this workflow is Hatz releases so many new features all the time. We release at least something new every week, oftentimes 3 or 4 new features a week. And every time we do, there's a documentation article that goes along with it. And from that article, I then create a use case, a blog post, a video script, a video title, and a new feature alert blurb. That's a lot of work that's done manually. I do use AI for some of these processes, but it's all segmented or discrete processes or workflows or just something in the chat. So I want to take this process that happens, something new is released in the Hatz platform, and then these outputs, this use case idea, this blog post, the video script, the video title, and the new feature alert newsletter blurb, all of that should happen somewhat automatically when a new feature comes out. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how I would do this. I would typically do this with a pen and paper, pencil and paper, but to show you how this works, I'm going to do it on Canva. So we're going to say that the input is here. We're going to have output, and then we're going to figure out, lastly, how AI is involved. We actually have a whole video about this ideation process if you want to check that out in the quick AI skills modules or on our YouTube channel. So the input is going to be new feature documentation. New feature documentation comes out, so that's going to be on docs.hatz.ai. There will be an article written for this new feature. So we have that article. That is the input that we're going to give to AI. There's no need to upload anything. Nothing really gets selected. It's just this URL. That's going to be the input that we work with, the new feature documentation. The outputs, we already have that right here, but we're going to clean this up a little bit. So let's just put this over here as a reference, and we're going to say use case idea. So this use case idea will be a way that we can showcase this new feature through the Hatz platform, actually demoing it. So that use case idea will probably just be a paragraph or so, maybe with some prompts. So let's put that here. Unbold that, paragraph with prompts. Then another output that we want is the blog post. So the blog post is going to be formatted like other Hatz posts. Just putting some thoughts here for me to refer back to. We've got the video script, because if you subscribe to our new feature alerts, you know that in addition to just explaining what the new use case is, there is a video script. So it's going to pair with this use case idea. So that'll be talking points for demo. And we've also got the video title. If you know anything about YouTube, you know that you can't just call everything Hatz AI new feature. There's got to be some sort of a title to draw people in. So I already have some of that prompted, but we're going to bring that over from another agent that I built. And then finally, new feature alert blurb. Now we've got the input, which is the new feature documentation, and we've got these 5 outputs. What we haven't figured out is AI's role. We already think that this is going to be a workflow. And the reason we think that is because we could make this an agent, but the agent would then have to be much more conversational and ask you, should I now go create the blog post and should I create the video script? I kind of just want all this to happen at once and not be a conversation. I just want to click generate and walk away for a minute and come back and all of this is done. It also can't be an app because it needs to split into multiple parts. It needs to access live data. It needs to do things that apps don't do. So we got a workflow. Do we need to connect to any integrations? Well, we do need to read this new feature documentation, which is in a URL. It's on a web page. So it needs to have web search tools, namely Firecrawl. We'll talk about that when we get to the actual building phase of this. Does it need to have anything else? I don't think so. I think that all of this can just be based on the LLM. So it's going to be a workflow with web search tools enabled, 1 input, 5 outputs. So we're looking at 6 steps. Let me zoom out just a bit. We got all this here, and let's go start building now. So here we are in the workshop. I'm going to click on new workflow, and we've got this blank screen. I love starting with a blank slate because we can make it do pretty much anything we want. It's just starting from scratch. So we're going to toggle back and forth between these two screens a couple times, but we have to first realize that the first thing we're doing is putting this input in. The workflow has to start with an input. Not every workflow needs to have an input. There are some, especially if you're running things via webhook or through a trigger, that actually don't need any inputs at all. But this one does, and it's the new feature documentation. So we're going to create a new input. Over here on the left, got create new input. These are my options. It could be a URL. This is an option that we have, but in this instance, I really only need it to be a short answer because I'm turning on web search tools. You have somewhat more flexibility with the short answer here. That's a video for a different day, but just bear with me here. We're going to go short answer, and we're going to call this the new feature documentation. We're going to say drop the URL of the new feature article. And that will be required. So we'll save that. I'm going to name this Scrape New Feature Docs. And I actually don't need something quite as powerful as Gemini 3 Pro Preview. We're going to leave it there for now. And the very last thing we do will be change the LLMs. So we'll have all of the prompts done, all of the steps. Then we're going to go back and talk through why I'm choosing which one. So if you're like, no, don't use Gemini 3, we're going to come back and talk about that at the very end. So new feature documentation, and we need to turn on web search tools. I'm going to turn on Firecrawl. The reason for that is because I already have the URL. I don't need to search. So I don't need something like Tvili or Google Search or Exa to go out and find the documentation. I already have it. I just need AI to scrape it and ingest it. I also don't need Perplexity. I don't need research here. I'm not doing anything with that content other than what the next steps of the AI workflow will do. I just need Firecrawl to grab that information from that web page. So I'm just enabling Firecrawl. Anything else would be redundant or overkill. Now I need to tell the AI what to do with this user input. And if you're lost on the user input component, let me back up and click on preview. The user input component is what goes here. This is how the user will interact with it. This is how future Mark will interact with this workflow. I'm going to just put something into this one field, click generate, and all of the other steps will happen. So if we go back, how does it know what to do with this? Well, we have to tell it. We have to prompt it. So I'm going to say, scrape the information from this web page and display it as your output. Does not need to be more complex or more complicated than that. Just telling it to do one simple thing. Now we go back to our Canva page. We're done here. We're going to make this green because we've figured that part out and it's finished. We're going to start setting up these outputs. AI's role will be the last thing. We just make sure we pick the right LLMs. We've got all the tools enabled. We got everything set up the right way. We're going to do these outputs first. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to click on Add New Step. If Add New Step is not visible, you just need to click somewhere on this box for this little piece to drop down, this drop-down bar. Sometimes it goes away if you're clicking in and making some edits here, but you really just need to click anywhere on this box. Adding a prompt template will help give you structure to make sure you're following best practices for some more complex prompts. I don't need that here because I literally just need it to scrape information. So we're going to get rid of all of these. So you're not clicking on Add Prompt Template here. You're clicking on Add New Step. So we're going to add a prompt step. We have videos about what these other two mean if you're curious about those. But for this entire workflow, for most of your workflows, you're just going to be doing Add New Prompt Step. So we're adding a new prompt step. But how many did I need? Let's go back and look. I needed 5. So we're going to, like, just what I was talking about. Sometimes it goes away. So you just click somewhere like over here, Add New Prompt Step. We're going to add 1, 2. And if you notice, these are all coming off. These are all branching off of the same step, this first step. That's exactly what it should be. They don't need to follow one after another after another. We might change some of that as we get going here, and that's really easy to do. We're just going to organize these so it's easy to see where everything is. Now this says 5, but it's because that first step is also included. So we're going to then add another new step. All right, we'll bring them over here. So we've got these 5. Go back to our Canva. So use case idea. Let's just copy this and Here, this will be our use case idea step. This is so important. This part, what I'm about to do, is one of the most important things of creating workflows. Just because this is connected to this through this connector does not mean that it can see the output up here, okay? So this is going to scrape the information from the web page and display it as the output for this step. All of these happen independently. So I need to click in here and say, using the output from, and then we click over here under outputs on the left. Just like we put inputs, we also have outputs. We're going to say scrape new feature docs. So that is going to inject the whole entire output from the previous step right in here. So using the output from this, which is going to be everything on that web page, create a use case that could be created. Now, this is where I am going to add some of these prompt templates. I'm going to say your output should look like this. And we'll do use case name, example prompt, good input and output examples. So we'll see how that works. We're going to move on to blog post, formatted like other Hatz posts. So let's go back into our workflow. We'll call this one the blog post. And just like we did before, using the output from scrape new feature docs, right? So it's connected here. Write a blog post. But if you recall, I said that it's formatted like other Hatz posts. How does the AI know what that means? We can add another prompt section here. We're going to go to these constants. So I'm going to create an input, and I'm going to use a constant that is a text. This is going to be Hatz blog post. So we're going to find the Hatz blog right here and look at some of these articles that we've written and maybe find one that we could use as a good example. This is a good one. This is not too long, pretty easy to read. We're going to grab this and drop it in here. Just going to call it a writing sample. So it's written in the same voice and tone of Hatz. And that's yellow. That means that you don't have to type all of that and throw it in here and make this a super long prompt or a super long prompt step. It can be stored as a constant there. You can also add files, right, that are referenced throughout the workflow. So I'm going to say this is an example of our writing style and tone. Now we're going to move on to a video script. And it's going to have talking points for the demo. I think you're seeing a theme here. We're going to do the same thing we did, right? Using the output from scrape new feature docs. Similar to the blog post, how does it know how we write scripts for YouTube videos? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. We record all of our videos on something called the script, and it transcribes using AI everything I say. So I just went off camera for a second, grabbed an example script, and we're going to drop it in here just like we did with that constant. So we got this. We're going to drop that in just like we did before. How we script YouTube videos. Cool. Now, remember when I said we might actually break some of these and change the way they're connected? We're going to do that for this YouTube video example because I actually want the YouTube video title to be based on the script that the YouTube script step creates, right? So I don't want the YouTube video title to be based on just this article. I want it to look at how the script should be written and then create the title based on it. So I'm going to break that. If you saw, I clicked on that little trash can icon, and now I'm going to drag this down. And by the way, I did this quickly, but if you need more room, you can collapse these little drop downs, right? If you want to get rid of the webhook thing, if you want to get rid of the variables and the triggers, they'll stay right there, but you can just collapse them to hide them. All right, so we're going to put in the title here. YouTube video title. We're going to say, using the output from, now this is where you might say, well, we're going to do scrape new feature docs, but we're not. We're actually going to grab the output from the step right before it, which is the YouTube video script. So you have to go look for it under outputs. So YouTube video script right there. So we're saying using the output from the YouTube video script, give me some options for video titles. I told you that I had something already built that helps with this kind of thing. And it's the Hatz AI YouTube Strategist agent. This is my own personal agent. So we're going to take this and grab the information about titles. There we go. So I'm going to grab that. And then we've got this. So we're saying there, just dropping that in. These are some best practices that AI helped me create for creating new title options. Then we're going to go here and we're going to say your output should be, and we're going to grab this, actually drop that in right there. That tells the AI how the title output should look. So we're going to leave that as is. We're going to add one more that we didn't talk about before, but I just had a good idea. I'm going to add another prompt step off of this YouTube script video. We're going to move this out of the way. And this is going to be a YouTube thumbnail suggestion. So based on the output from YouTube video script, and I'm also going to grab this and connect this here. You can see how these can get pretty convoluted, but it's still straightforward, right? When you think about it. I'm connecting both of these. So now I can say, based on the output from YouTube video script and from YouTube video title, give me 3 options for a thumbnail. So we're saying your output should be 3 options and a justification for each one. And each one should also include a prompt to give to another AI model that can actually use to generate the images. This is not going to generate the images for us. This is going to give us prompts that we can then go to something like Nano Banana Pro in Hatz to generate the images. So we'll leave that here for now. And that finally leaves us with this last step, which is the new feature alert blurb. So let's grab this, put that in there, and we're going to say, as expected, create a 3 bullet point overview of the feature, what, why, and how. Simple as that. If you've been around Hatz for a while, you know there's a lot of guidance that's been given around best practices for prompting. What I'm doing here is just what I would normally do. I start with the least amount of info for these steps. We sometimes give best practices that have every step should have the tone, the persona, examples, output, role, and sometimes even more. And that might be true for a lot of workflows. But sometimes it's best to just start with the basics. See that it's working, make sure everything is at least giving you an output. There's nothing, totally wrong with any of these. And then you can go in and add more context and more prompts and set up more parameters and guidelines. I like to start small and build up into it. If we go back and look at this Canva page, it's the exact same thing. This is the workflow, okay? This is the workflow. Here's my input. Here are my outputs. These are the prompts. I'm starting out very, very small, and then adding a few more things on either side. That will continue because this is just the first draft of this workflow. We'll probably come back in here and make some edits, add more prompt sections, give more parameters. But for right now, I just want a proof of concept to make sure that this thing is going to work. So we've got all of these steps finished. Let's save our workflow. If you've never saved a workflow before, a couple key things to keep in mind. You need to give it a name. It says app name. Don't worry, it is a workflow. It says the same thing for agents, apps, workflows, just a holdover from previous nomenclature. So save it. We're going to call it new feature flow. Create outputs based on new feature docs. Category. You don't need to do any of these, but it just helps to find it later on. So we're going to call this business and then publish the workflow. So it's published, but only I can see it. If you go into settings, you see that the default is private. I can share it with my organization, so I can put it into one of these groups if I want to. If I put this into prompt engineering group that I created, only the people in prompt engineering will be able to see it, nobody else. If I share it with my whole organization, then everyone will be able to see it, etc. I can also put this in the community if I want to, but I can't do that if it's from private. I have to share it with my organization first, and then I can share it with the community. Whole video on that if you're curious about it. So we're going to share to nobody because I want it to be private for now. So let's go to preview and run this. And then we're going to come back, like we said, and change these models. But I want to see the outputs just with this first. So we're going to grab this old example, right? There's going to be some new ones coming every week, but I want to test it with something that we've already done this for. So running workflows via webhooks, we're going to drop that URL in here and click generate. We can also go back and change what order these outputs appear in. They're just in the order that they were created by default, but you can move them up and down. So if you have all of these steps and you don't really care about step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you really only care about that final output, step 7, you can just drag that back up to the top and it'll show up here so you never have to scroll down at all. You can see the outputs coming in. It's saying here's all of the content from that web page. Looks good to me. Use case idea. We'll check these as they stream in. Use case name. There we go. Example. Here's the prompt. This is what I wanted. And then good input and output examples. Very cool. Blog post. Written just like our blog posts. YouTube video script. So this is an example of something that I might need to go in and edit because I don't love all of these stage directions that it's giving. I just want like a monologue. AI is trying to be helpful here, but in a way that's not actually helpful for me if I'm going to click record and read something, right? I want it to be formatted different. So that's an example of, hey, this is just the first version. We're going to go back into proof of concept and make some edits. And then YouTube video title. Something happened there, so we got to go in and check it out. No problem. And then Gemini 3 bullet point overview for the new feature alert. What, why, and how. Very cool. And then YouTube thumbnail suggestions. Option 1. Okay, these images, this is cool. These prompts that I can give to AI. Okay, so we know what we need to do. We need to go in and make a couple changes. So let's exit preview. And we don't need something as powerful as Gemini 3 for this. We can actually turn this on with something like 2.5 Flash. That would be totally fine. It's a fast model. It has tool calling, so it can still use this tool, the Firecrawl tool, but it doesn't need all of that reasoning power like Gemini 3 has. Use case idea. I'm going to leave this on Gemini 3 Pro Preview. I think that's totally fine, and I was happy with this output. Blog post. I like Gemini 3, but I like Claude 4.5 Sonnet for the way that it writes. There was a lot of talk about how Claude, the Anthropic models, sound more human. I don't know if that's true. I think a lot of it has more to do with the way that you prompt something. I generally like the output format and the way that Claude models, especially 4.5 Sonnet, interpret what I'm asking. If I were to record this video 6 months from now, might have a totally different take. And that's part of the beauty of Hatz. You can always go in and switch it, and it's very easy to do so. So we're going to click on 4.5 Sonnet, YouTube video title. It said there was an issue with this, so we're going to actually change this up. Let's change it just to like a GPT 5.2. And let's see if there's any issues with the way that I formatted this, just because I might have copied and pasted something in that I shouldn't have. So title engineering. I think it looks good. I think, maybe it just got confused with that model. We'll see what happens. I don't know, but that's fine, right? It didn't break the whole workflow. It just that one step didn't work. YouTube thumbnail suggestion. I was happy with this. I'm gonna leave this as is. This was great. And then finally, we've got the new feature alert blurb. I'm actually gonna switch this again. We're gonna do Claude 4.5 Sonnet. I just like the output better. And I want to show you, a couple Claudes, a couple Gemini, a couple GPT. So we're gonna switch this. Now we're gonna save it. Oh, then we got to go up here to the YouTube video script. So I'm saying I do not want stage directions or any visual cues, simply a monologue that I can read. And we're going to switch that to, let's use a model that we haven't used before, like a Mistral model. I've not used Mistral Large 3 for anything like this. Let's just see how it works. Okay, let's save this, republish it. Again, just to me, it's private. Let's go back and preview it again. We're going to grab this documentation again, drop it in there, and generate. I'm realizing now that this is a much longer video than I intended, but this is the process for prompt engineering. You can use things like the Hatz Workshop Assistant to speed this up, to create really a scaffolding or a skeleton of the workflow. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to go in and make decisions and make these edits. You keep a human in the loop. I like to do things old school, and by old school, I mean the way it was done before the Hatz Workshop Assistant, just to go through the process of prompt engineering I like to know exactly what's happening. But the Hatz Workshop Assistant is a great tool that you can use. Go check out our videos about that on YouTube. For this, we call this like the work behind the wow. Okay, this is the work that goes into a workflow like this, or any sort of an AI item in the workshop. But if you think about how long this stuff took me, and we're going to go back to this Canva page and actually document how long these steps took and compare that directly to the 32 seconds here, 23 seconds here, 37 seconds here, and see how much time I'm saving on a weekly basis. But really, this is something that happens 3 to 4 times a week with the new features that we push out. So we're going to do all that math at the very end, just so you can see the work behind the wow is worth it. Even if it takes you 45 minutes, an hour to build a workflow like this, it is worth it if it's saving you that amount of time on a repeated basis. So let's check out these new models that we tried. We got Gemini 2.5 Flash. Perfect. I love it. It's great. No issues here. It's even showing me all the images and everything. Love that. Really, this step is just to get the information into the workflow to kick it off. Use case. We didn't change this. This is fine. I like this. Blog post, we did change this to Claude 4.5 Sonnet. And again, I like this. I like this better. I like this format a lot better. I'm going to read this before I post it. Of course, you better believe that. I'm not just going to hit copy and paste. I'm going to read this, keep a human in the loop, make sure it's okay. Make sure it's better than okay. And then we're going to post it. YouTube video script. Change this to Mistral. So got that. I like that. This is great. Short, sweet, to the point. Great for quick AI skills. YouTube video title. This worked. No upstream error this time. And it's giving me some options. Cool. I like this. And then new feature alert blurb. We changed this to Claude 4.5 again. So what, why, and how? I have no issues with this. And then the YouTube thumbnail suggestion. Let's see this. I don't think did we change this? No, we didn't change this. I liked this. So this is great. Now we get to do the fun part and go back in and look at how much time it took and how much time it's now taking. And we can do that calculation to see how much time we're saving. All right, so I just put this table together really quick so we can see exactly how much time we're saving with this workflow. Time before, pretty self-explanatory. The use case idea would take me about 10 minutes reading through the documentation to understand it, come up with an idea for the use case, even test it a little bit. Blog post, 30 minutes. Good quality writing. Video script, 30 minutes. Prepping for the video, getting this use case ready, making sure everything is working. Video title, 2 minutes, not a ton of time, but that gets multiplied over many, many videos. Same thing for the thumbnail. This is ideating and then actually creating it, which we're now going to do with AI. And then the new feature, blurb alert, 5 minutes. Last thing I do, pretty easy once everything else is done, but it's still 5 minutes is 5 minutes. If that's happening 3-4 times a week, that adds up. So let's look at time after. Go back in here to our run history. We can see exactly how much time this is taking. So now we can do the time saved. So we just added everything up. Saves me a ton of time here. I'm rounding, okay? So we're within, a minute or two on either side, but basically something that took me almost an hour and a half previously for every new feature now takes 2 minutes, which saves me almost an hour and a half, saves me 85 minutes per feature. But if we do this times 3 features per week, that gets me 4 hours. That's approximately 4 hours a week. But over the course of a year, we're looking at 208 hours a year. That is not an insignificant amount of time at all. That's like 10% of a full-time employee's work. So this is 10% of something I used to do manually. I've now given to AI. I'm not afraid that I'm going to be replaced by AI. In fact, I am so excited that AI can replace these functions so that I can spend my time doing something more creative, more strategic, not writing a bunch of stuff, doing use case ideation for things that AI can just do. I can spend more time being creative in videos and spending time teaching and educating about how to automate these things. You still need to keep a human in the loop. Not one of these things will be posted without me reviewing and making some edits. So this 208 hours might really get whittled down to, let's say, 150. But still, that's much better than 0. So this whole process of creating this workflow, looking at all of these steps that are involved, the constants, the inputs, the outputs, connecting everything, you can do this. You can follow along if you want to rewatch this video and follow along from the beginning, or get your own whiteboard out. Create your own steps that look like this: the input, the output, AI's role, creating this table to track how much time is saved. I encourage you to do this. And if you've watched to the end of this video, I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Hopefully this was helpful for you to see that it's not magic. It just kind of feels like magic, but creating something that looks like this and does all these outputs took a dozen sentences. It just took some planning and some preparation on my end to make sure I knew what I wanted to give AI, what I wanted AI to give me back, and then we worked backwards into how we need to prompt it. That's as complicated as it has to be. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't try to get too fancy or too technical. We're doing all of this just with natural language. So if you build something cool that you're proud of, that's saving you a lot of time, I want you to reach out to Hatz, reach out to your account manager, let us know what you're using Hatz for, how it's helping you, and we might showcase you in a use case spotlight. I love doing that. So until then, happy prompting.